Welcome to the Nebraska Hawk's Nest. These guys are brave. They're Hawkeyes living in enemy territory. Listen, these guys are way past their prime, but they're still Hawkeyes. They're spreading the Hawkeye hype to all of Nebraska. The frost advisory is canceled. Corn huskers, more like corn suckers. Are you ready for this podcast? Let's go Hawks!
All right, welcome back to the Nebraska Hawk's Nest. We are lucky enough to be joined by Iowa Hawkeye legend, former Detroit Lion, and current head coach at Clear Lake, Mr. Jared Devries. How's it going?
It's going fantastic. Thanks for having me on today.
We're excited to have you. Thanks for taking time out of your busy schedule, coaching and raising a family and everything else you got going on to sit here and catch everyone up in Hawkeye Nation on what you're up to. Tell us what you're up to now, where you're living, and what you're doing for work. Because, like we said before, you are in the coaching field now.
Yeah, so our family's settled down here in Clear Lake. Been here since 2010, Clear Lake, Iowa, that is. And been the head football coach. Been volunteering since 2011. Been the head coach for the last 6 years. So that takes up a great deal of our time. Two boys, Jalen and Easton. Jalen is going to school at Southern Illinois University, and Easton will be a senior. So Jamie and I will be empty nesters after next year. So yeah, and as far as what we're doing, coaching is a lot. We own and operate Brothers Market in the state of Iowa, Missouri, and Kansas. So I have 15 of those stores that I attend to, and then I also farm. So a lot going on, but it's fun.
I don't think you probably have a spare second left in the day. Like, I'm lucky we didn't get you during like harvest or planting, because you're probably going at it like a madman there with farming, running all those stores, and coaching. You got to have a pretty cool wife, and she's got to be pretty understanding, because it sounds like now you're as busy as ever.
Yeah, no, I'm actually more busy now that I'm out of playing football. I say, man, I wish I could go back. My day'd be a lot easier. But yeah, Jamie's very supportive. She just takes care of everything, allows me to do what needs to be done.
That's awesome. You got to have a really supportive spouse. Just being in coaching at all during football season, you're not very accessible because you're watching film, you're at practice, you're at the weight room. I mean, you're doing everything. You're never around. I grew up with, my dad was a high school football coach, and I remember towards the end of every football season, she'd be getting a little snippety at him and a little frustrated because he wasn't home. He was out coaching his team and, honing his craft and trying to become a better coach.
Yeah, especially it does take up a lot of your time. A lot of it is probably my own doing. I'm a little excessive. So I tend to watch more film than, I probably absolutely need to, but I always want to try to get a leg up on the opponents. So, yep, it takes a lot of time, but it's very rewarding and fun as well. So
all great coaches are like that, because you love the game and it's not work. When you're doing it, you enjoy it. It's interesting, the different schemes and everything that you get to watch. You get sucked in, and as well as anybody, you're sitting there watching. The next thing you know, a couple hours have gone by, and you're like, crap. All right, I got some other stuff I got to do. I'm getting pulled into this film, and it's addicting. So, yeah. But all great coaches, that's how it goes.
My wife says the lawn gets neglected when football season's.
That's true. I'm sure. I'd like to see football coaches' lawns from like, preseason to like the regular season. 'Cause like you gotta like have the guys come over like on the team on Sundays, and it's like coach yard day. Have them come over and mow and like weed eat and water your plants and stuff like that. It's like kind of like Karate Kid. They're gonna be like, Coach, what does this have to do with football? No,
Right.
guys, this is part of the developmental process. This is teaching discipline and responsibility.
I don't know if we could swing that into it. I've got some pretty smart coaches and good guys, so they might be on to us.
All right, it'd be worth a shot though. So I don't know. We want to go back to the beginning. With you coming out of high school, a very heralded high school recruit, had a really great high school career. Tell us about your recruiting process. What schools were really giving you a hard look and you were strongly considering, and what was it about the University of Iowa that made you decide to be a Hawkeye?
You could say I was heavily recruited, but really I didn't feel like I was at the time.
Okay.
Recruiting has changed so much with social media and all. It used to be like a phone call on a landline.
Yeah.
There wasn't all the Twitter and all that stuff, but really it was the Midwest schools. Iowa being obviously the number one, Nebraska and Wisconsin. Some of the other schools, would send letters. That was another form of communication. But really, it was just Iowa. I think everybody knew once they gave me the offer, I was like, well, he's going there anyway. So, Iowa State didn't even bother recruiting me because Iowa was. So, really was excited and honored to get that offer from Iowa. And really, that's the only team I considered.
You really had a blessing, and this obviously must have shaped you as a coach to play under a couple different legendary coaches, notably, Coach Hayden Fry and Ed Thomas, and I'm sure many others that, don't get discussed quite as much. But specifically, Coach Thomas and Fry, how did those two coaches shape you as a player and the coach that you are today?
Well, it started with Coach Thomas. That's where it all started. Really, I probably wouldn't have gotten a chance to play at the university if it wasn't for him. We didn't form a relationship really till my junior year because our schools weren't consolidated yet.
Okay.
But before even I was an athlete of his, when we were playing against rival schools, Appleton versus Parkersburg as opposed to being Appleton Parkersburg, he sent my film into Iowa, and he wasn't even my coach.
Wow.
Yeah. And that really tells you what type of person he is, and as an about. But he really established the things in me that I think got me to the University of Iowa, and that being a strong work ethic. He really reinforced what my parents instilled in me. And just to play with, a passion and play with heart. And, that really just, molded to what I became as a player. And then obviously playing under Coach Fry, he continued to just do the same. But really Coach Fry's assistants were more involved in develop, in developing the players. So, yeah.
I don't know that I've ever heard a story of a coach that from an opposing team that wasn't even your coach yet, sending film like that to a university to get them seen. I mean, that really tells a tale about what type of man he was and, what was important to him, because clearly to him, it's not all about just his team winning. He's trying to do the right thing for kids coming up through school and through football. Yeah,
absolutely. Like I said, that's a heck of a statement. Go out and do that. Being a head coach myself now, I know that I've reached out to schools. Hey, you got to give this guy a look because he's from a smaller school. I didn't feel like but that's pretty outstanding.
What point of your career or any time did you realize that you wanted to get into coaching, and what do you feel like most influenced you to do so?
Well, at first I said, no way. And a quick story, Don Clemens, longtime assistant coach for the Detroit Lions. You know, we're on a bus trip, getting ready to board a plane, and he's like, Jared, I guarantee you're going to be a coach someday. Nope. When I'm done playing, I'm done. He goes, mark my words. And it's funny. I visited him here in the past years, and he goes, I told you so. I told you so. I don't know what he saw that, like knew I was going to be a coach, but it was something. I don't know. It was the way I prepared. I didn't know if it was how I conducted myself in the meetings, but he knew, and he was right, and I'm glad he was right, because I really enjoy coaching, and just being involved with the kids.
Generally, those guys tend to stand out in meetings and, mini camps and stuff like that, because they tend to be the guys that are, like from what you've seen, working with the younger players, helping teach, and pretty much an extension of the coaching staff. Would you say you kind of fit that role?
Yeah, I think you're exactly right when you say that, an extension of the coaching staff. I was getting up in years, so I kind of, that they knew me there at Detroit, and the coaches all had been with me. Him being the longest, although we changed head coaches like every other year, he always stuck around, and changed maybe roles within inside the organization, but. Yeah, I think that's part of probably the longevity I was able to have, is because coaches could trust me. I was an extension of the coaching staff, and as we brought in younger players, I think they saw that.
So the guys, everyone that's listening on just the podcast right now, they're going to have to use their imagination here, but looks like you're in kind of a sweet man cave there. You got some trophies and some footballs on the wall, and it looks pretty sweet. Can you just, I know you can't go over all of them, but maybe, tell us about some of the cool hardware you have up on the wall there.
Well, the one in the middle there is the MVP of the Alamo Bowl. It's just a replication of the actual trophy that we got as a team. I think down in the corner is a Sun Bowl MVP, and some of the other ones are just team MVPs and different things, and a couple of them are actually still at the university. Obviously, I'm missing the Hawkeye helmet. It usually is right up there beside my Detroit helmet. Yeah, so I just collect different things around the room. You can see Lawrence Taylor and Buckus over there, and Joe Namath, Marcus Allen, just some memorabilia stuff that my wife allows me to hang up here.
So typically during football season, with you coaching, are you able to take time on Saturdays to make it over to Kinnick, or be able to sit down in your man cave and relax and have a beer and watch the Hawkeyes play?
Yeah, it obviously didn't happen this year, but I since I've been back, I haven't missed maybe one home game.
Okay.
So here at Clear Lake, we give the staff off on Saturdays, allow them to be with family or go to a game. We think that's important. Obviously, with what happened this year and the pandemic, and my son going to Southern Illinois, where he would have been playing in the fall. So they had a spring season. So that's going to be challenging this year. After the game, I'm going to head out to go to Carbondale or wherever he's playing, and then be back for Sunday meetings. So it'll be a challenge. But we have a great staff, and they were all fine with it. They have a few more responsibilities being that I'm gone for a day. So should be interesting.
How weird was it with the spring football? I mean, there was a lot of debate going on that it might be best for that level of football to have a spring season every year, because they get all that exposure. But then the other side of the coin is they're not getting to play against those big time schools. And that's a big check that those programs, get a lot of their funding from throughout the year. What were your thoughts on that whole spring versus fall football season?
Well, it was great for the kids to be able to participate in that spring season. For them not to have a season, that would have been just horrendous for them and their college experience. It's going to create some challenges, in my opinion, because you got to think that there's guys that got nicked up, and have a shoulder or a knee scope, but you got to realize their season just got over, and now, if you're going to have a cleanup or a surgery or procedure, you usually talk about 10, 12 weeks. Well, that puts them right up against the next season, the fall season. So that's going to be a great challenge. Obviously, it was a great reward for those young men to have a season. But it's going to create some challenges this fall, I'm afraid. And that's a lot of wear on the body in a year's time.
So I really want you to think back here. During your NFL draft process, going in the third round to the Detroit Lions, walk us through what that day was like. Were you nervous? Were you just excited when you got that phone call, and how excited you were?
For me personally, it was a tough experience. It was a great experience, but it was a tough experience. I was a highly rated junior. I didn't perform well in the 40 essentially at the combine, which made me slide in the draft. So you're thinking you're going in the first round, and then round 2 goes, and then round 3 goes, and it's like, oh. So it was a little bit gut wrenching, humbling. But then to get that call from Detroit was obviously a huge relief, and so thankful for the opportunity. And really looking back on it, I wouldn't have changed where I got drafted or who I got drafted by, because our experience in Detroit was absolutely phenomenal. Great friends, great organization. Just very thankful.
All right. Now, you seem like you're an extremely level-headed guy, Coach, but we want a non-level-headed answer here. When you first started to make some, solid NFL money, what was the first big purchase that you made? And then what was the dumbest thing that you look back on now and you're like, I can't believe I bought something like that. I was a dumb kid. Because they all do it.
Yeah. The first big purchase I made was a farm.
Nice.
But I'm glad I did it. I wish I would have listened to my dad and bought all kinds of it. What was it? What was the other question you asked?
Maybe like the most irresponsible kind of dumb thing that you're like, oh geez, like you look back as an adult now and as a father, and you're like, I wish somebody would have told me not to do that. But every guy that when they sign their first contract, or maybe it goes into their second, that they make that one bigger purchase that, is kind of frivolous.
Yeah, to be honest, I've always respected that, I felt like I've respected the value of money and that. So to be honest with you, I don't really say that I have one. To be honest, I've always tried to live within ourselves and make good decisions. So there's not one of them I think that I would regret. I can't give you an unlevel-headed answer.
All these Iowa guys, like everybody that we've interviewed that's played at Iowa, like we ask that question every time, and like everyone is so grounded and responsible. It's like I haven't heard one ridiculous thing. And then you hear stuff from like all these other schools where it's like they buy like a Ferrari. I remember Trey Strauss told us that they hadn't even officially made the team yet, and they didn't know where they were going to be. And a guy for the Texans bought a red Camaro and a navy Camaro, both 2 different ones, that he was going to alternate driving to the practice facility every day. And so I'm like, Trey, what did you drive? And he's like, I rode my bike. Like I had a bicycle that I rode every day. And he's like, I stayed in the team hotel until they kicked us out because it was free. And I'm like, geez, it's just the responses from, the former Hawkeyes is way different than most other guys.
Well, as far as I can remember, I had driven a F-350 Ford forever now, and I do occasionally get a new one, but it's always the same color and an F-350. So
you gotta stick with what you know,
right?
Even though Chevy trucks are a little bit better.
Well,
I'm just kidding.
obviously the Lions are owned by the Fords, right?
That's true. You got to stay loyal to the brand. I totally get that.
Yeah, and I felt really good when Mr. Ford would pull up and park, somewhat close to me, and he saw me getting out of a Ford, especially when his stamp is on my check every Monday.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I honestly, I'm not brand loyal. I mean, I have a Dodge and a Chevy, and when we just had a Ford, so we've had a little bit of everything. We always try to buy American. I'd say that's the only thing. But speaking back to your comment with the ownership, not too many NFL players can say that they played for the same organization from the start till the end. You were able to do that. Tell us how much that meant to you, and how much that meant to have a commitment from an organization where there's not really loyalty really in that league at all anymore. And there never really has been a ton, but to be able to stick with one team like you did is pretty rare.
It is extremely rare. I'm extremely thankful, but if you look back on it, it's even more rare because we changed head coaches 7 times.
That's true.
And usually when that happens, the roster turns over because they know players. And there's a statistic, I don't know if the roster turns over by 65% every time a head coach comes in. So that happened 7 times in 12 years. And we also changed management a few times. So for me to be able to stick with Detroit was obviously a blessing, and very thankful for the Ford family, all the coaches, and all the management, that I was able. Really, Matt Millen, he didn't have the greatest success, but he obviously believed in me, and I'm grateful for that. And we still talk to this day. So, yeah, it's pretty remarkable.
Matt Millen's a class act. Anybody that's seen him, handle himself and operate, he's just a classy, well-spoken, down-to-earth guy. So it just, sometimes things just don't come together. And
yeah, he'd be the first to admit that he didn't do a great job. But that doesn't mean he isn't a wonderful person.
Exactly.
Doesn't mean he isn't, sometimes you can be good at your job and just not have the success in the numbers, which obviously the NFL is all about. So,
and sometimes it's the landscape. Sometimes, you can take a guy that's not successful in one place and he gets an opportunity somewhere else, and it can be completely different. So there's so many things at play that, players, fans, everyone else just don't know about. And so it's definitely not anything that, any of us can judge, because there's too many things that go on behind the scenes that we're not aware of. Now, on the opposite end of that, front and center, you got that Detroit Lion fan base who's pretty well known for being extremely loyal and vocal for their Lions. And then you got that Iowa Hawkeye fan base who, very arguably might be one of the best, if not the best fan base in college football. Tell us what it was like to play in front of both of those great fan bases, and what differences or similarities those two fan bases have.
Well, let's start with Iowa. You're exactly correct on that. That's one of the best fan bases, if not the best fan base in all of college football. They're supportive through thick and thin. They show up every week, whether it's home or on the road. I mean, it's just remarkable, the support that they give all Iowa athletics. It's just unbelievable. And then you basically have that same thing, but a little bit more, I don't know if it's opinionated or voiceful, when it's a little bit more negative, because unfortunately, Detroit hasn't experienced a lot of success, and they'll let you know, but they're some of the loudest fans when it's going good. I mean, we had that Silver Dome rock and the floor was shaking. It's a very dedicated fan base for sure.
Well, they got some changes that are coming through right now, and Coach Dan Campbell's taken over, and he's already earned the nickname Motor City Dan Campbell. He's a pretty wild, outspoken guy, and I think the city of Detroit and just NFL fans in general are pretty excited about him taking over. What do you know about Coach Campbell, if anything, and what type of changes do you see him making to make the Lions more successful going forward?
Well, I know a lot about Dan Campbell because I played with him. We lived in the same neighborhood, so every Monday night our families would get together because Tuesday was our day off.
Okay.
So every Monday night of the season, our families would get together and have supper. And then when the kids went to bed, I can tell you a lot of things that shouldn't be said on the air. But we always like to have a good time.
Let's hear him. Let's hear him, Jared. Come on.
We always like to have a good time. They always told me that I was getting old because I always wanted to end the night early. So the one night they actually turned the clocks back, all the clocks back in house, so they could stay out an hour later. But he's got high energy. He is about hard work. He's going to have a tough football team, I can tell you that. I know for a fact that the players will play for him because that's what type of player he was. And I'm assuming that he's that way in his coaching profession as well. He's been around a lot of good ones, obviously Sean Payton, Parcells, I know had an influence on him when he was in Dallas. So he's been around a lot of great coaches. I'm sure he's picked up a lot. He's got a lot to bring to that profession, that organization. And he kind of fits the mold of the Detroit, fan, that hard nosed, get after you type personality.
God, I hope he does well. I really do. I hope he stays there because, man, his press conferences are fun.
He gives you a lot of material.
He does. He's awesome. So, all right, let's get into this scenario here. You're just hanging out at home. It's a nice, relaxing evening with the family. The phone rings. It's Motor City Dan Campbell. He's like, Jared, I'm calling your name. I need you in Detroit, man. I need you part of the staff. Let's get the band back together. How are you going to say no to that guy?
I probably wouldn't get past this year. The only way I would say no is if it affected, our family in a negative way. But yeah, that'd be a good reunion.
Oh man, I'd love that. I'd have to, I'm not a diehard NFL fan. Just like most Hawk fans, I flip around on Sundays to watch the former Hawkeyes play and see as many of them as possible. But I may have to be a Detroit Lions fan if that happens. That would seal the deal for me, I think.
Well, the next time I call him, I'm going to call him Motor City Dan Campbell. So
do it.
I think for sure stuck.
It's either that or MCDC. They have that old ACDC logo. They're making MCDC shirts now, and the guy's already a legend. So,
Well, anytime you talk about biting kneecaps on your introductory press conference, you're making a name for yourself. So I loved it. Like I said, he's going to bring some toughness. Yeah. So. People
are kind of just tired of the overly politically correct responses that like a speechwriter wrote something for them. It's the guys that are genuine and a little raw, and it's coming from the heart, even if it's a little wild. People love it because they want to see who they truly are, and that's why the city of Detroit, as 100% behind him, because the guy is genuine. He's awesome. He's full of energy, and so we're going to be rooting for him, as I'm sure you will too.
Absolutely.
I wanted to ask you too about a time when you were at Iowa. This is a materialistic question, one that I'm sure you probably don't care much about. But you were at Iowa during a rare time where there were some uniform changes. Over all the years of watching Iowa football, and then when you played too, what's your favorite all-time Hawkeye uniform?
The one they have now.
Yeah.
I love their black out.
Jersey. The one at Ohio State.
Yeah, I think it was
versus Ohio State.
Yeah, we put a beat down on Ohio State. It was pretty much just all blacked out, right, with just the yellow swoosh. We actually copied or mimicked that a little bit. We were up for for new black uniforms this year. So I just Googled all the Iowa great uniforms and pretty much just copied that one. So
that's
the
awesome.
Clear Lake Lions will look very similar to what the Hawkeyes look out like in their
I think that's 90% of everybody says that same exact thing. The yellow ones with the feathers on them that kind of were supposed to replicate those late 90s ones. I think the design was cool, but the all yellow to me was just a little too much.
Yeah. It's kind of like the feathers Coach Fry gave us in was it 95 or 96?
Yep.
I'm like, oh, cool. He was so proud of those uniforms, man. I'm like, can we go back to the old school ways? But
those were before their time, that's for sure.
Oh yeah, the kids would love them probably now, but I was kind of like more, the tradition that mimicked the Steelers, and obviously I like that a lot.
I remember the morning that the Des Moines Register published what those uniforms were going to look like. And I mean, that's how they released that information back then. There was no social media hype videos. And I remember hearing my dad out in the living room saying, "What in the hell?" And I'm like, what's going on? I'm getting ready to go to school. And he's like, "Look at this garbage." And he's like, "That's what they're going to wear this year." And I'm like, I think I was in probably 6th or 7th grade. And I was like, man, those are kind of cool. Like, as a kid, I'm like, those are different. Those are cool. But my dad was like, those are garbage. Like, those are ridiculous. And now they're legendary, kind of.
Yeah. I thought that we were I quoted this, or Ben quoted saying that we look like a Canadian football team,
Yeah. Or Arena League,
something
like that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Something similar to that. So I don't know. We'll see what they pull out of their hat the next time. What I hear is they're gonna just re-release those like every couple of years and wear those exact same ones. So we may not have seen the last of the all banana colored gold uniforms.
Okay. Well, as long as they win the game, right?
Yeah, that's all I really care about. It's kind of cool to see them, bust something out from time to time. But yeah, at the end of the day, we just won a victory. Wanted to talk to you a little bit about your brother and his coaching career and the success that he's had. How cool was it, especially this last year, watching him be able to win his first NCAA tournament game, and what it was like all of those years he was at Creighton for a really, really long time. What kind of patience it took for him to really sit, wait his turn, and how selective he was, because he probably could have taken a lot of other jobs over that time. And from what I hear, he really wanted that Drake job. That was a job he could see himself in. What's it been like for your guys' family to see his success?
It's been unbelievable. Really, what he's been able to do at Drake is just unbelievable. I mean, it's record setting. Just the record itself speaks for itself. It's been awesome for our family. There's always somebody in the stands. I mean, rarely do you not have 50 DeVrieses there. And we got to get more fans in the stands. And I think there would have been this year, had they didn't, limit the amount of fans. But just been remarkable to watch. And yes, you are correct. He wanted that Drake job bad. He obviously learned under some great ones in McDermott and Dana Altman, who's now in Oregon. So for sure, they both influenced his coaching career. But I was just really, really proud of him. It almost brings a tear to my eye, because just to see the amount of success that he's having and what he's building there at Drake is awesome.
He was the perfect hire, and for a lot of reasons, but the one that most people don't talk about is anytime a coach has had success at Drake, they move on. And I think that's been the problem with those Drake basketball fans, is there's not been a lot of trust there, because it's like they have a good season and then they start to get nervous. They're like, oh, our coach is going to leave, he's not going to stick around. So hoping that coach sticks around at Drake, builds something there, because he's shown he's not one of those coaches that's just going to hop around. Like, he sticks it out and he's a loyal guy. And everyone's just really hoping, because I'm from the Des Moines area. I'm from Des Moines. So I know growing up, people are hungry for Drake basketball to do well. You got that whole Des Moines community that would get behind him and go to those games and pack the Knapp Center. That's a beautiful gym. It's not huge, but there's not a bad seat in that house whatsoever. That's a great place to watch a basketball game. So I know myself and a lot of other people are just really hoping that he ends up being the long-term coach there, because he could really build something special there.
Yeah, I think you're exactly right. He played in the Valley. He coached in the Valley before Creighton jumped to the Big East. So he knows that league. He obviously is, he knows that area, and you're exactly right. He applied for that job 3 times.
I knew about twice. I didn't know 3.
Yeah. I believe that it was 3 times, and finally getting on his 3rd try. He obviously, saw something in Drake and saw something in that community that thought he could build something, and turns out that he's done that in short, quick fashion. Really excited to see how we'll play for him and for Drake. So that being my nephew. So
yeah,
it's gonna be a lot of fun.
At that level, long-term drawn out success, it's been done. Wichita State's done it. A lot of schools at that level have really built their program into something, bigger. And it just seems like there's been such a great template at that university for so long. And it's such a strong academic institution. You got everything going for you there. And now that they finally seem to have the right coach, we're excited. It was odd watching the NCAA tournament this year, and I'm usually only watching rooting for the Hawkeyes, and it's like Drake's, and it's like all the Hawkeye fans are rooting for Drake too. It's like, oh my gosh, like you're calculating if the Hawks keep winning and the Bulldogs keep winning, they might be able to play each other. How freaking cool would that have been? I mean, that would have been awesome.
Yeah, that'd be unbelievable. They need to bring that back a little bit, where Drake plays some of the other state schools, but
yeah,
that'd be fun.
No, 100%. That'd be great. And think of how rocking the Knapp Center would be if the Hawks came to town. That would be awesome. That'd be a lot of fun. I
imagine that Drake would have to go to Iowa, but you never know. Well, they used to have that
Big Four Classic.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
They do it they used to do it at Vets Auditorium or the Iowa Event Center. They have UNI, Drake, Iowa, and Iowa State. Yeah, and they would all play, and I always thought that was cool. Maybe they'll do that again. How competitive were you two as kids? Would you guys just go at each other, or were you guys pretty supportive of one another?
Both. We were very supportive of one another, but very competitive. There was not one of us that liked to lose a game in the yard of hoops. We always were playing basketball, and I'd tell you what, I'd push them through the lawn before I let him score a layup to end it. So we were all very competitive, but also very supportive as well. We played on every team together, so we're always pulling for one another.
Speaking of that, from your lengthy pro career and your career as a Hawkeye, who were 1 or 2 of the toughest guys that you went against in practice in a game that you were just like, man, this guy's a beast. He's a machine. This guy's another level. Anybody that comes to mind when you think of that?
There's a lot of great players that I played against, so I'd be slighting them. But the Orlando Pace of the world, the Flows. There's so many great ones, so many great Big Ten tackles. Aaron Gibson was on our team. He didn't have quite the pro career because of injury, but he was a special talent. I got to practice against Ross Verba all the time. That helped my development. So just so many great players through the years.
All right, we're going to finish with one last question. We got to really dig deep here and think hard for this last one. On the practice field or in the weight room, locker room, anything like that, we always like to ask this question, whether it be with the Lions or the Hawkeyes. What's a memory from practice or working out in the weight room or conditioning or anything like that? Do you kind of look back on sometimes, like on a regular Tuesday during the week, and kind of puts a smile to your face and makes you laugh a little bit? Like, wow, that was wild. That was pretty crazy. I miss those days.
Well, I don't know if this is wild or crazy, but it does make me laugh. It does make me chuckle. Coach Austin was our D-line coach at the University of Iowa. And I don't know, for some reason, maybe I was having a bad day. We got into a little skirmish on the field, and apparently I instigated it. So he got in my grill and made me run around the practice field holding hands with another offensive lineman. and yeah, that's not that wild, but I look back on it and I'm like, how silly do we look? These big football players running around the practice field holding hands. I gotta ask him who. I think it was Matt Reichel, but I don't know who I was holding hands with. But point proven.
That is an awesome story. Have you ever inflicted a similar type of discipline as a head coach?
I did. I did the same thing.
Did you really?
If you two knuckleheads want to fight, you can run around the field and hold hands. So I've done it. I've done it. So
see, there's nothing like that that's like gonna make two guys kind of laugh and realize, okay, like, that wasn't a big deal. This is pretty funny. I mean, the only thing worse you could do is maybe have them skip and something like that on top of it. But that's a good way to kind of lower the anger and just like bring two guys together and be like, all right, we're cool.
Yeah, absolutely. At the end of the day, you're still teammates, right?
Absolutely. And you know what? If you're not getting into skirmishes every once in a great while, maybe you're not going as hard as you should.
Well, the dog days of training camp, I think, that might have had something into it. I was tired of beating up on each other. And, there's just some days where you're out there, to get second practice, you're out there a couple hours, like, okay, I'm just done beating on everybody or getting beat on.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Totally understand. Coach Jared Devries, thank you, sir, for taking time out of your sounds like ridiculously busy schedule with everything you have going on. Give our best to the family, to your son playing out at Southern Illinois, and wish him the best of luck with a great upcoming season. And we wish you nothing but the best and best luck going forward.
Thanks. I appreciate it. Thanks for having me on. Go Hawks.
All right. Thanks a lot, Jared. Go Hawks.